The Roosevelt Dime, a small 10-cent coin that carries with it a story far greater than its modest size, is one of the most widely recognized and circulated pieces of U.S. coinage. Yet behind this little coin lies a fascinating history that connects to American culture, economic shifts, political influence, rare minting errors, and collector demand that has transformed certain examples of this dime into treasures worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, making it a captivating subject for both casual viewers and serious numismatists. And to truly understand why the Roosevelt dime holds such importance, we must begin with the context of its origin, because the dime as we know it today was introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who had passed away in April of 1945, and Roosevelt, who led the United States through the Great Depression and World War II, was also deeply connected to the March of Dimes, a campaign originally formed to fight polio, the very disease that afflicted him, which makes his portrait on the dime not only fitting but symbolic of his legacy. And the coin's design by John R. Sinek, chief engraver of the U.S. Mint, reflects simplicity and strength with Roosevelt's left-facing profile on the obverse, accompanied by the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, the date of issue, and Sinek's initials, J.S., while the reverse features a torch in the center, flanked by an olive branch on the left symbolizing peace, and an oak branch on the right representing strength and independence, with the motto E Pluribus Unum inscribed across, a design that has endured with only minor modifications for nearly 8 decades. But what truly elevates the Roosevelt dime beyond ordinary coinage are the fascinating minting errors, silver content transitions, and unique historical circumstances that have made some examples extraordinarily valuable. And to understand that, we need to look at its production history, because the first Roosevelt dimes from 1946 until 1964 were struck in 90% silver and 10% copper, making them part of the era of constitutional silver, which means every one of those dimes has an intrinsic bullion value based on silver prices. But beyond their metal content, many of those years produced varieties and rarities that today are hotly pursued by collectors. And when the Coinage Act of 1965 eliminated silver from dimes in favor of a copper-nickel clad composition to combat coin hoarding during the rising silver market, it marked a major turning point in U.S. coinage history. Yet collectors know that it is not simply composition that matters, but also what mistakes the mint made. And that leads us to the thrilling world of Roosevelt dime errors, where ordinary-looking coins might actually carry extraordinary hidden value, such as the famous 1982 No-P Roosevelt dime, struck at the Philadelphia Mint without its P mint mark, a rare error caused when the die was mistakenly prepared without the mint mark. And because it was the first year Philadelphia began using a P mint mark on dimes, the absence was quickly noticed by collectors, leading to one of the most dramatic error discoveries in modern coinage, with examples selling for thousands of dollars even in circulated condition, and in top grades fetching far higher, sometimes reaching auction prices in the tens of thousands. And then there is the even rarer 1968 no-S proof Roosevelt dime, an error that should never have existed, since all proof coins are struck at San Francisco with the S mint mark, yet a handful were struck without it, creating one of the scarcest modern proof coin errors, with certified examples commanding upwards of $20,000 to $40,000 at auction, and still climbing as demand continues. But perhaps the most famous and breathtaking Roosevelt dime error is the 1975 no-S proof, which is so rare that only 2 examples are confirmed to exist, making it a legendary coin in numismatic circles, with one selling for more than $300,000 at auction, placing it among the most valuable error coins in American coinage history. And beyond mint-mark errors, there are countless dramatic varieties such as double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and transitional errors, like the incredible but exceedingly rare 1965 Roosevelt dimes that were accidentally struck on leftover 90% silver planchets, even though official production had shifted to clad copper-nickel. And these transitional errors can command staggering sums, with verified examples realizing more than $8,000 to $10,000 depending on grade. And what makes Roosevelt dimes particularly fascinating is that they remain in circulation today, meaning an unsuspecting person could potentially discover one of these valuable rarities in pocket change, fueling the thrill of the hunt among collectors and treasure seekers alike. And when we consider the overall value spectrum of Roosevelt dimes, ordinary circulated clad examples are worth face value, while silver issues always carry at least their melt value, which fluctuates with silver prices. But the true stars of the series are those rare dates, mint mark errors, proof anomalies, and high-grade condition rarities, with some registry quality coins graded by PCGS or NGC reaching astronomical values because of the fierce competition among collectors trying to build top-ranked sets. And this is why the Roosevelt dime is not only a tribute to a historic president, but also a coin that has cemented itself in the marketplace as one of the most fascinating U.S. series, bridging the worlds of everyday currency and high-stakes numismatics, where a coin worth 10 cents at the bank could in fact be worth thousands of dollars at auction. And as we continue exploring the Roosevelt dime, we uncover not only the financial aspect but also its cultural symbolism. Because Roosevelt's placement on the dime was a direct nod to his leadership during national crises and his association with the fight against polio, symbolized through the March of Dimes, which raised enormous funds for medical research and ultimately contributed to the development of the polio vaccine, thereby linking the coin forever to a narrative of resilience, recovery, and hope. And this dual role of the Roosevelt dime as both a circulating coin and a commemorative piece of history makes it one of the most significant coins in modern American numismatics, and within this significance lies the constant search for the holy grails of the series, the elusive errors, the perfect condition proofs, the silver transitionals, and the minting anomalies that turn an ordinary dime into a life-changing discovery. And it is this possibility that keeps collectors searching rolls, examining change, and paying close attention to even the smallest details like the presence or absence of a mint mark, a tiny doubling in the lettering, or the unusual shine of a silver planchet in what should be a clad year. And this ongoing treasure hunt is what keeps the Roosevelt dime exciting nearly 80 years after its introduction, because every coin has the potential to tell a story, whether it is a simple story of honoring a president or a dramatic tale of a six-figure auction price. And that is why the Roosevelt dime has earned its place not only in the pockets of Americans but in the hearts of coin enthusiasts around the world, standing as proof that sometimes the smallest objects carry the greatest histories and values. Continuing with the incredible story of the Roosevelt dime, we now dive deeper into the extraordinary journey of this 10-cent piece, not just as a coin but as a living chronicle of America's post-war era, technological advancement in minting, and the ever-growing fascination of collectors who find themselves captivated by its hidden rarities. And what truly makes the Roosevelt dime stand out in the broader panorama of U.S. coinage is how it bridges three distinct phases of history, beginning with the silver era from 1946 to 1964, when each dime contained 90% silver and 10% copper, transitioning into the copper-nickel-clad era of 1965 onwards, and overlapping with the modern proof coinage boom where technological perfection sometimes paradoxically led to minting oversights that birthed some of the most valuable errors in modern history. And when you trace this journey, you realize that while billions of Roosevelt dimes have been minted, the allure of a few rare specimens elevates the series from ordinary to legendary, and among these rarities perhaps none is more famous than the 1982 No-P Roosevelt dime, a modern coin that should have been completely ordinary yet became extraordinary when Philadelphia's newly required P mint mark failed to appear, producing an error so impactful that collectors today willingly pay thousands of dollars for what appears at first glance to be just another dime. And in pristine mint state 67 grades and higher, these errors have shattered price expectations, often reaching $10,000 or more. And this isn't just a story about missing mint marks, because the Roosevelt dime series holds within it two of the most valuable and legendary proof errors in American coinage: the 1968 No-S proof and the almost mythical 1975 No-S proof, both struck at the San Francisco Mint, where every proof should carry an S mint mark. Yet inexplicably some dies were prepared without it, resulting in extremely rare coins that shocked collectors when discovered. And the 1968 No-S proof routinely brings auction prices in the $20,000 to $40,000 range, while the 1975 No-S proof, of which only 2 examples are confirmed to exist, has fetched staggering amounts, with one piece crossing the $350,000 mark, forever cementing it as one of the most valuable modern coins ever struck. And that's what makes the Roosevelt dime so exciting, because even in an era when minting processes were supposed to be precise and foolproof, extraordinary blunders slipped through, creating life-changing discoveries for those lucky enough to uncover them. And this pattern doesn't stop there, because transitional errors like the 1965 silver dimes, struck when the mint was shifting from silver to clad, provide another layer of excitement, with each verified example commanding upward of $8,000 or more depending on condition, and collectors are always on the lookout for these oddities, which could easily pass unnoticed in a pile of change. But beyond errors and rarities, condition rarity is another vital factor that transforms common dimes into valuable assets, because high-grade Roosevelt dimes, especially those from the early silver years, are extremely difficult to find due to the heavy circulation they experienced, and coins graded MS-68 or higher by PCGS or NGC can command astronomical premiums, particularly for low mintage dates or those struck with exceptional luster and strike quality. And in fact, the Roosevelt dime has become a favorite for registry set collectors, who compete fiercely to assemble the finest known examples, driving prices ever higher in auctions and private sales. But perhaps what adds even more depth to the Roosevelt dime story is its connection to American history and culture, for Roosevelt's profile on the coin wasn't just a design choice but a deeply symbolic gesture, honoring not only his leadership through the Great Depression and World War II, but also his personal battle with polio and his legacy through the March of Dimes, an organization that raised critical funds for polio research and vaccines, thereby linking the dime forever to a story of resilience and triumph over adversity. And this emotional connection resonates with collectors who see the coin not just as a piece of metal but as a piece of history. And when we combine this symbolism with the tangible thrill of rare discoveries, we find that the Roosevelt dime embodies both heart and excitement, a combination that explains its enduring popularity in numismatics. And to truly appreciate this coin, you must also recognize the technological advancements it represents, because the shift from silver to clad was one of the most dramatic changes in U.S. coinage, reflecting economic pressures and the need to conserve precious metals. And yet despite these changes, the design endured, becoming a constant presence in the pockets of Americans for decades, a reminder of continuity even in times of change. And now, as we look across the entire Roosevelt Dime series, from the silver strikes of the 1940s and 1950s to the clad strikes of today, we see a tapestry woven with stories of rarity, error, beauty, and symbolism, making the dime much more than its face value suggests, because while most examples are indeed worth only 10 cents, hidden among them are treasures worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, proving that numismatics is as much about possibility as it is about history. And that is why collectors continue searching rolls, examining change, and chasing the dream of finding that one extraordinary coin, because the Roosevelt dime offers that tantalizing promise. And in conclusion, the Roosevelt dime is not just a coin but a monument in miniature to a great American leader, a witness to dramatic changes in U.S. coinage history, and a treasure chest of opportunities for collectors, where the next great discovery might be waiting in the most ordinary place. And that is the magic that keeps this small coin forever large in the world of numismatics, because the Roosevelt dime has shown us that even the smallest denomination can carry enormous significance, both in history and in value. And for that reason it remains one of the most important and sought-after coins in modern American coinage. And as always, the story of the Roosevelt dime is still being written with every roll searched, every error uncovered, and every record-breaking auction, which is why collectors and enthusiasts will never stop pursuing it, because you never know when the next dime will change history and fortune all over again. Thanks for watching.